Sociology in this new area have been largely challenged. First, sociology has been developed as in the extension of social work with universalistic aims, and in an area where it was not prepared, in fact, to serve a diversity of interests, a diversity of interest groups, a diversity of stakeholders. It was not prepared for the development of individualism in a way, and so sociology serves collective aims, not individualistic ones. So it was the first difficulty for sociology to be recognized, for example, in comparison with psychology. The second aspect is that sociology has been the victim of its success because it has largely produced criticism against the states, against the welfare states, producing are not capable to reduce inequalities. And this criticism has been largely disseminated into social movements who progressively develop their own knowledge, their own capacity to develop their own criticism, and with the extent of the civil society, with the extent of social movement, this social movement was more interesting by short-term vision and by producing a certain doxa, a certain storytelling facing policymakers and think tanks, and were less and less interested by what sociology was able to offer in terms of deep knowledge and knowledge capable to provide them with a very distant and reflexive stance about the changing condition of policy making. Sociology has been put in competition with other sciences, neurosciences, cognitive sciences, who have progressively gained legitimacy in policy making. The call for interdisciplinary research projects has undermined the capacity of the sociology to be involved in this interdisciplinary project, because the problem of sociology is it tends to consider the other knowledge as normative, and it's very difficult for it to accept other vision, other discourses, for example, from economists or from psychology. According to this fact, the resources, the human and material resources of sociology have progressively declined, with the difficulty to be recognized as a useful discipline serving policy aims, with less academic position occupied by cognitive sciences and psychology. There are probably some other reasons, but I don't have much time to explain them or to present them, and I would prefer to end this lecture with some consideration about what sociology, and particularly sociology of education, can do, and what the European sociology of education we try to develop together can offer in this new landscape. Because for me, it's important to follow the Weberian tradition of axiological neutrality, in the sense we have to keep a sort of distant or reflexive perspective on what is provided by discourses and assumption about evidence-based policy making. We don't have to be prisoner of the discourse between truth and fact, but we have to show how these facts are used to justify truths, particularly in the fields of economics and evaluation. I think it means the possibility of a research community to develop a sort of epistemological watch in order to be able to produce alternative scientific discourse about what is becoming a sort of orthodoxy of the truth on one side by evidence-based policy making, and a sort of doxa of the facts or doxa of the opinions, as you can observe generally through social media and networks. I would say that this doxa is largely produced too by the storytelling of think tanks on other interest groups, which interest is to try to make people believe in an alternative vision about education to promote their interest, their private interest in education. Thinking about the movement of philanthropy, which become very influenced, or corporate elites, which become very influenced in providing this storytelling, aiming to change the condition of education and putting aside the tradition of public education. Another way, of course, is trying to put these discourses at distance and this ideology at distance in developing alternative comparison of education policy, and particularly in Europe, on demonstrating the disconnection between this policy making, these discourses on policy making, on what is the reality of local context and practices. In this critical reflexivity, which is, for my opinion, required by sociology of education, we need to keep a sort of historical meaning of what's going on in current education policies. Tom Popkiewicz is speaking about an history of the present, but I think it's quite important to develop our criticism from this historical perspective. And I think that could be interesting to think about the link we can develop between historians of education and on sociologists studying Europe and studying European policies. The third thing is that we have to perhaps give more importance to the materiality of the new spirit of capitalism in education, and particularly at European level. Objects, what Paulo called material assemblages, are quite important to understand the infrastructure on which the policy making is based in order to advance the European political agenda. There's been lots of work which has been done on statistics, on indicators, benchmark, on metrics, which are important tools in order to enforce the Lisbon strategy. But there are some more invisible devices and technologies. I'm thinking about digital technologies who have a capacity to influence and to restructure education system and policy. Perhaps we have to study better these knowledge networks connecting expertise and policymakers. We don't know much about these networks. These networks are differentiated between short and long networks, between proximity and distance, between people with resources and people without resources, between people capable of mobility and people incapable of mobility. And this differentiation is well exploited by the European Commission and its institution. You've got long network connected European institution with other institutions in the world or actors. You've got short networks connecting policymakers with policy entrepreneurs. The European Commission is organizing distance in organizing meetings which are enrichable by social and protest movements. And the European Commission is also facilitating the traveling of experts and policymakers all over Europe. I think that this politics we have also to investigate in studying Europe in education. There is a lot of work to do. By chance, where we have a young generation will be able to investigate all these different aspects and others in the future. But I think that Europe must be understood in a larger perspective and through its connection with the world. I will just take an example of that. Recently, I was visiting the Smart Living Lab at the Beijing Normal University, and they have developed lots of projects according to MOOCs, computing clouding, learning analytics, robot in the classrooms. And this Smart Living Lab with the Beijing Normal University, they have structured a partnership along the Silk Road from China to East European countries, developing partnership with academic institutions, with government, in order to develop or improve digital technologies in these countries. And this partnership is also made with US universities. So I said in Europe, beyond Europe, a new world is coming, for the better and for the worse. And you will have to explain the new policy and politics in this new world, and how not only states are connected to the European institutions, but how Europe itself is connected or in competition with other big part of the world. Thank you very much for your attention.